The next category is Quadratic Inequalities Level 1. So we're going to solve this inequality algebraically. Your answers are going to look kind of like the answers that we had in the last category. So that's kind of why we started with the last category, so that you can get a visual for what's happening. Because remember, this has a graph to it. There's a graph. It's going to be a parabola, that's U-shaped graph that's going to be attached to this equation. And you want it to be above the line 0. Let me actually just kind of draw it out in a very quick, terrible sketch. This graph is going to look something like an upwards U-shaped graph, and you want to compare it to the blue line. I'm going to use blue because they use blue. The blue line of 0. So that's this one, and then this one's our black graph. So here, essentially what we want to do is find the sections where, I'll keep writing in black, find the sections where our black graph is greater than 0. So we want the sections that are above 0. So essentially we're going to want this section and this section. Okay? But we need to find out exactly what x values are over here, because we don't know what those are yet. So we're going to find those out. So how do we find it out? Well, I want you to first treat this like it's a normal quadratic that's set equal to 0. So just pretend it says equal to 0. I know it says greater than, but we're going to just pretend it says equal for now. And then you can do the x factoring method. Do you guys remember that? So on the top, you take this number 32, and you put it here. You want numbers that will multiply to 32. Then you're going to take this number, the 12, and you're going to put it on the bottom. And you want numbers that add to 12. And so can you guys help me think about what numbers will multiply to 32 and add to 12? 8 and 4 is correct. So what that means is, if you guys remember, we have x plus 8 plus, because it's a positive 8 over here. And then for the positive 4, we have x plus 4 equals 0. So then we can set each side equal to 0. So x plus 8 equals 0. And then x plus 4 equals 0. This is hopefully looking familiar to you. We've done this before. So then when you're solving for x, you're going to subtract 8 on both sides. Those cancel out. You get x is equal to negative 8. And then on the right side, we're going to subtract 4. Those cancel out. You get x is equal to negative 4. Before we move on, are there any questions? All right, so what are these numbers that we just found over here? This x is equal to negative 8 and x is equal to negative 4. Those are actually the intercepts of our graph. So I'm going to regraph this one. Actually, yeah, I'll just use black still. So negative 8 is over here. And then negative 4 is over here. I know, it's not drawn to scale. Doesn't need to be. We're just sketching it. And your graph's going to look something like this. Okay? And it's an upwards parabola. How do I know it's upwards? Because it's a positive x squared. It's not a negative. If it was negative, it would go down. But it's a positive x squared, so it's going up. And so since we know it's a positive x squared, we know it's an upward facing parabola that is shaped like this. It touches our x-axis at the negative 8 and the negative 4. That's what we solved for right here, the negative 8 and the negative 4. So knowing that, and also knowing that we want our graph to be greater than 0. Remember, 0 is this line right over here, this blue line. Since we want all this stuff greater than 0, we want the sections that are above 0. That's this section and this section. So we're going to need to write that out into our answer box. So how do we type that out? Well, let's do this section on the left side first. It's everything that's less than negative 8. Everything to the left of negative 8. So everything less than negative 8. I'm going to type that here. X is less than negative 8. That would reflect this part, okay? Now, how do we say the right side? The right side is everything to the right of negative 4. So I'm going to click or x is greater than negative 4, because everything to the right of negative 4 is going to be greater than negative 4. So you want these two sections, so that's why I separate it with the word or. Are there any questions? And then I'm going to submit the answer. Wow, it's so messy. I'm so sorry. Okay, you just let it load like really slowly. Wow, okay, give me a second. Let me clear all of our annotations first because it's messy. Pause the recording. Okay, so I don't know why it wasn't loading. Delta Math does that sometimes, but as you can see, we got 1 out of 3, so that means it was right. All right, let's do another one. Okay, solve the following inequality algebraically. So we follow the same process. Let me annotate. We're gonna pretend that this is set equal to 0. Actually, I'm gonna use black because I don't know, I just do. It's a darker color, it's easier to see. Okay, so I'm rewriting it. Even though I know it says greater than or equal to 0, I'm just going to pretend it says equal to 0. We're going to solve it from here. Oh, another thing is I do think it'll be helpful for me to show you what the graph looks like. So this is a positive x squared, in which case that means we're going to have an upwards U shape. So let me just sketch the U shape. I don't know where my U is going to be, but I'm just going to draw my U there. And we're going to compare that U shape to this line of 0, because that's what we're comparing it to. And we want our black graph, the U shape, the parabola, to be greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to want the sections that are above 0. Okay, so greater than means above. So we're going to want this section and this section, because those are the sections where your curvy parabola are above the blue line. So those are the sections we want. That's just a preview. Let's figure out where, like, what x values we're dealing with here. So for this quadratic equation, I'm gonna draw my x factoring thing. We're gonna put the negative 32 up here. We want numbers, I can't talk. We want numbers that multiply to this. We're gonna take that negative 4, we're gonna put it on the bottom. We want numbers that add to negative 4. Now I'm gonna pause the video. You guys help me figure out what two numbers multiply to negative 32 and add to negative 4. So we have negative 8 and positive 4. Good, so negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. So let's see. With this negative 8, I'm going to write x minus 8. With this positive 4, I'm going to write x plus 4. And we're going to set it equal to 0. And then we're going to set each factor equal to, I can't talk. Set each factor equal to 0. This is what happens when I'm hungry. I just want to rush and then I can't talk. Okay, so we set each factor equal to 0, solve for x, so add 8, add 8. That way they cancel out. X is equal to 8. Here we're going to subtract 4, subtract 4. Those cancel out. We get x is equal to 4, or negative 4, sorry. And so let me redraw that graph. We have negative 4, and we have positive 8, and now we know that our U shape cuts through like that. Oops, that was not good. Cuts through like that. There we go. This is our U shape. It touches at the 8 and at the negative 4. So this is what our graph looks like. Okay, and so once again, remember that we want it greater than or equal to 0. So this is the 0 line. It's just the x-axis. So if you want it greater, you want the sections above. So I'm going to circle them. We want this section and we want this section. Okay, pausing the video here to see if you guys have any questions yet. Okay, so since we want those two sections, we're going to have two separate things that we're going to type into our answer box, separated by the word or. Okay, so when you're writing it in, let's talk about the section on the left. So we want everything that's less than the negative 4. Oh, one more extra detail. Notice that this sign is greater than or equal to 0. Like we also want the spot where our equation is equal to 0. And that means we also want the spot where our equation is equal, like right over here. We want this negative 4 because that's where our equation is 0. So instead of just saying x is less than negative 4, I don't want this because I want to keep the same type of symbol. If this one has an equal line, I want this one to have an equal line. So I don't want this, but luckily they gave it to us over here. So I'm going to delete that and type this one. So I want x is less than or equal to -4 simply because this symbol has the equal to line under it. So if the symbol has the equal to line under it, you want to include this number in here. Okay, so after that section, this is the section on the left. I'm going to press the word or. I also want to type it for the section on the right. So the section on the right is everything to the right side of 8. So that's going to be x is greater than or equal to 8. Remember that I still want that underline here because the symbol has the underline. So that means you want to include the number 8 in your answer. All right, are there any questions? And let's submit this answer and hope it refreshes properly. Okay, it's not refreshing, but if I go back, you can see it says 2 out of 3, which means we got it correct. So even though delta mass lagging, we know we got it right. Okay,